Hey everybody, I'm Shane Ireland, and I'm here to talk to you about something extremely special today. If you've been following Smoking Pipes for the past many years, you're probably aware that we hold every year an annual American Pipe Making Exposition. The idea behind the American Pipe Making Exposition was to give American carvers a theme to work with that allows them to submit a single piece of work that is the most exemplary they can come up with. It really gives them a chance to flex their creative muscles, to show off the craft and the tips and tricks and everything that they've learned over the years and create something really special. This would mark the 10th anniversary of the American Pipe Making Exposition, and for the 10th anniversary, we have decided to do something different this year. To celebrate the 10th anniversary, the American Pipe Making Exposition will now be henceforth known as the Global Pipe Making Exposition. That's right, not only will our American pipe carvers be submitting pieces this year, we have invited all of the pipe carvers from all over the world that we work with to submit an entry this year. In its 10th year, since the American Pipe Making Exposition will now be the Global Pipe Making Exposition, we also found it fitting to return to the original theme from 10 years ago, which is bamboo and pipe making. We've invited all of our pipe makers from all over the globe to contribute to this exposition and submit something extra special. So let's see what they got for us.
Chris Aswith, an artisan out of Plymouth, England, has sent us a very traditional shape, but one that's very different in terms of materials. In silhouette, you can tell it's a very, very classic English straight billiard, but Chris fashioned this out of bamboo laminate. So the texture is super, super unique. The grain is obviously very, very different from briar. However, to keep the smoking properties consistent and what we expect from a briar pipe, he's lined the chamber with briar, so it smokes the same as a briar pipe. And he's also lined the airway of the shank with briar as well. So all of the smoking properties are that of a briar pipe, but aesthetically speaking, it's completely different. Really, really interesting use of bamboo. And to top it all off, he's fitted it to one of his signature polyester stems, which matches really, really well with the lighter tones of the bamboo. Ping Zon's entry into the 2024 Global Pipe Making Exposition is a really beautiful and organic piece, very much in his style, which plays a lot on the sort of Danish shaping cues, very soft lines, very organic. It's worth noting that Ping, for many, many years, has been known for what he calls his horn-carved bamboo, which is essentially a horn shank extension that he meticulously and very intricately carves to resemble bamboo. I'm talking like individual nodes. He goes through so much to get the appearance of bamboo as authentic as possible, but using an alternative material. What he's done here is taken that a step further. We have an actual piece of lovely dark bamboo in the middle, and on the saddle stem and where the junction is between the briar shank and the bamboo itself, he has carved really, really detailed bamboo nodes to mimic the rhythm of the bamboo, and like I said, the exact appearance of the bamboo itself, the irregularity, all the cool intricate details. Really, really innovative to frame the bamboo using both briar and vulcanite to continue the rhythm in both directions, and the detail work here is amazing.
All right, up next from China, we have Yangkun with a really, really impressive interpretation of the dancer shape. This piece is really like a functional sculpture. He's actually created this carved foot that has this really nice like ridge lines, and it's also sandblasted, which gives it this really nice juxtaposition against the smooth bowl. But it's this really awesome sort of like wave-like structure that holds the whole piece up. And then of course to sort of fit into the bamboo theme, we have this really beautiful piece of tapering Buddha belly bamboo. It's really dynamic. It's really beautiful. And of course, it is one of his signature grades, so the grain on this thing is absolutely killer.
And next up, we have a bamboo branch with leaf on jade from Michael Parks. And what a piece. Where do we begin? We'll start with bamboo. He's calling this a bamboo branch, and while these two pieces of bamboo are pretty gnarly, the symmetry in them is really impressive, and just the way they naturally flow with this shape. Also, this leaf is incredible. Partially sandblasted on the bottom, really nice rings on that, and this super tight bird's eye on top is nothing short of incredible. And then to top it off with this magnetic stand made entirely of jade is, Michael knocked it out of the park. This received his 5-leaf designation and fully deserves it, and I'm sure it will be going to a happy home.
Gustavo Kuna, the artisan behind Martello pipes, has sent us a beautiful, beautiful version of his signature jatoba shape. And the showcase here is obviously this section of 6 knuckles of bamboo that are very, very tight knit but evenly spaced, which is a rarity in bamboo as an organic material. You don't get that sort of consistency in the knuckles, but Gustavo has found a very, very consistent, beautiful piece of bamboo to adorn this pipe. And the briar itself is a stunning showcase of natural briar grain too. We've got perfect cross grain down both sides to frame bird's eye fore and aft in just beautiful display. And he's done a really nice job too of keeping the color palette consistent and striking. We've got a vulcanite stem that's this sort of honey mustard hue that matches really well with the bamboo. And he's also put another piece of that vulcanite on the other end to keep everything harmonious. Then lastly, he's done an accent of jupati nut, which is indigenous to Brazil and something you see a lot of in Martello's work. So once again, just a beautifully crafted pipe with stunning briar and a really, really nice section of bamboo.
Sabina Santos. Sabina Santos' entry into the Global Pipe Making Exposition 2024 is a beautiful calabash with bamboo extension and mammoth cap on the calabash and also mammoth on the end of the shank. We have 2 actual pearl inlays in the nodes of the bamboo. And what I really like about this is sort of the rhythm of the whole thing. It really marries a very traditional pipe shape, which is the calabash, and even the color palette. The natural briar and the bamboo sort of mimic the gourd color, but you also have these very modern touches, the saddle stem, the way that the end of the shank is turned, and obviously the contrast between these sort of natural tones of the bamboo and the natural briar, and the really, really interesting and complex tones that you find in the mammoth accent. A beautiful piece. I would say that calabashes are definitely a signature of Sabina's. This one ended up with her top grade, which is the G, and it's absolutely deserving of that. Beautiful piece.
German artisan Dirk Hinaman has presented us with a special version of one of his signature shapes, the Tuban. As the name denotes, it's a very tubular pipe design. Almost doesn't even look like a pipe. It looks more like a cigar or something like that. Very cylindrical with a slight curve in the middle. But in fitting with this Expo's theme, he has carved the briar to resemble bamboo. So even though it looks very much like a section of bamboo, albeit a very large section, it is in fact briar that Dirk meticulously hand carved to resemble the aesthetic of bamboo. It's a really, really cute small pipe too, perfect for travel, and he's topped it off with a hand-cut stem of Juma, so it gives a nice little contrast with the white stem.
Kurt Ballaby's entry into the 2024 Global Pipe Making Exposition is a shape that he is very, very familiar with. It's the Ballerina. A beautiful, elegant shape, very complex, the sort of upright nature of it, the intricate line work. It's a beautiful shape, like I said, that Kurt is very well known for, and the juxtaposition here of such a complex form that's very elegant with also 4 beautiful knuckles of bamboo. I really like the play that you have between, like I said, these sort of soft but intricate lines and this very organic material. I think that it lends an added air of elegance to an already elegant shape, and the execution here is just stunning.
And now from Japan, we have another entry, and this is from the Suge Ikebana workshop, specifically made by the wonderful artisan Asami Kikuchi. And this piece not only incorporates bamboo in what I think is a sort of very iconic approach to Japanese pipe making, but it also is a sort of nod to one of the most iconic forms in Japanese pipe making tradition, and that's the Kiseru. The Kiseru obviously is a very light, shorter smoke, and Asami here has sort of scaled that up to briar pipe proportions. We have a larger bowl. It's sort of this beautiful acorn or pear-like shape, and then this wonderful stretch of 4 knuckles of bamboo. But what's really interesting to me here is the stem work. It's sort of this really cool tulip shape, which you often find on the mouthpieces of Kiserus. So wonderful, wonderful interpretation, taking that iconic Japanese form and translating it into a briar pipe. Just a really spectacular piece.
Mutton's entry into this year's Expo, really, really unique. It is a partially sandblasted pickaxe with 2 horn accents that beautifully accent this piece of bamboo he used for the shank. Really craggy piece of bamboo, but a beautiful color, beautiful symmetry, and it flows perfectly with this shape. I also love this revealing bird's eye on the forefront of the pickaxe bowl. Beautiful use of this horn. Love this pipe, and I think Jay Mutton knocked it out of the park.
American carver Pete Prevost has sent us this really, really fun and cool full bent volcano. I don't think I've ever said the words full bent and volcano in the same sentence, but it's a volcano with an umpal sort of bend to it. And much of that length of shank and stem is comprised of this 3 knuckles piece of bamboo. Really, really nice piece of bamboo, and it's fitted to a really, really well-shaped stummel. One of Pete's, recognizable volcano renditions with a little sort of flare at the heel there. And it's also a beautiful piece of briar. He was able to get a natural sandblast out of it, but also left the bottom completely smooth and unstained for a very natural virgin finish with a little kiss of plateau right there. One of my favorite aspects of this piece is how Pete incorporated the stem into the overall composition. When you look at it up close, you can tell how he shaped the stem base to mirror the shaping of the end of the bamboo. A really nice subtle touch that brings the whole design together for a really cohesive pipe.
Nana Ivarsson. Nana has, for the 2024 Global Pipe Making Exposition, come up with something incredibly singular, something I've never seen before, and I think the effect overall is amazing. What we have here is sort of one of her signature shapes, and not only does it utilize a bamboo shank extension, but the bowl itself is crafted from cast pieces of bamboo with a briar insert and shaped. So basically what you end up with is this amazing cross-section that sort of mimics the grain of briar, where you have sort of straight grain running along the side, bird's eye on the bottom and the top, and you really get to see a lot of detail in the bamboo itself because of the shaping. You have like a cross section of all the fibers and how it looks. It's just super detailed, super complex, and it's worth noting that the briar insert is also made from Bow Nord briar. And like I said, the color interplay between the bamboo cast in the resin, the briar itself, and the bamboo, beautiful, gorgeous piece. Stunning, and I've never seen anything like this before.
Indonesian carver Wandy Riyadi has sent us a pipe that's stunning in terms of its bamboo as well as the shaping of the briar. He has called it the Naga, which is dragon in the Bahasa language, which is the official language of his home country of Indonesia. And fittingly, he has shaped the bowl to be a dragon's head. Absolutely crazy, absolutely beautiful. I'm kind of just going to let it speak for itself. We've got horns. He's carved a line for the mouth. The intricacy of it is spectacular, and the grain is also beautiful. But the bamboo really, really takes center stage. It's an incredibly unique and complex piece of bamboo with really asymmetrical nodes and unparalleled lines throughout it, and it's all very compressed, like someone took a regular piece of bamboo and just pressed it accordion style. Really nice final touch is this end is just regular vulcanite, and Wandy has incorporated that into the stem base as well, so that it really lines up perfectly and brings the whole design together.
Constantine Shikita. Constantine is a pipe maker who is known for innovation in his carving and his presentation, and just the great lengths that he will go to as a craftsperson to create something that we've never seen before and something stunning. And I think that this bamboo calabash is no exception. What we have here is one massive and crazy gnarly bent piece of bamboo, totally natural, that has a briar bowl fitted to it, a calabash cooling chamber, and a mammoth shank extension with a traditional vulcanite stem. I mean, the silhouette of this pipe alone is enough to grab your attention from across the room. And I love how much bamboo he's incorporated into this design and how much he's kept true to the natural form of that bamboo.
Next up, we have a killer piece from Alex Florov. As you guys well know, Alex is very well versed in sort of asymmetrical and sculptural forms, these very evocative shapes. And for this year's entry, he submitted a really cool volcano. Alex has made a lot of volcanoes in the past, but this one is super, super neat. It's sort of low slung, so the actual bowl itself is sort of squat and broad, but it's got this really cool sort of teardrop-like asymmetry. But I think, of course, the showpiece here is this giant shank of Buddha belly bamboo. And it's super cool. Like all the nodules just really work to add like a, sort of this natural elegance to it. And I think the way he's handled the stem, sort of playing on that asymmetry, curling it back to the other side, is just really, really neat. Beautiful grain on this. It's got a little bit of plateau at the bottom, just as like a natural sort of juxtaposition there against all of the wild bird's eye. So really, really, really cool piece from Alex. Super excited to be able to talk about it.
And next up, we have a beautiful, beautiful cavalier from our good friend Bill Shalaski of Briarworks fame. This is a sandblasted cavalier, obviously with a bamboo shank. This is a functioning cavalier. This foot actually comes off and is beautifully engineered, smoothly in and out. Very dark brown bamboo he used here, as opposed to some lighter stuff that you usually see. And it just flows beautifully with this cavalier, and that color palette works super well with this kind of signature stain and sandblast that Bill does. Form and function embodied in this, and I'm sure it will make a beautiful smoker for somebody.
Danish artisan Tina Ballaby has presented us with this beautiful Sphinx design, obviously elongated by a really nice section of 4 knuckles of bamboo. The Sphinx is one of those shapes that can take a lot of different forms, but generally speaking, it has this central ridge line that cuts the bowl in half here. And for this particular version, Tina's really emphasized that line. She's scalloped the front end right here to kind of call to mind its namesake when looking at it head on. And the briar is beautiful. Got cross grain running down the middle, bird's eye framed on either side. And final touch that I really enjoy is how she's balanced this stem, the saddle portion of the stem, with the rhythm of the bamboo knuckles. So if you were to look at this in silhouette, the stem base would actually appear like it was one of the 4 knuckles of bamboo, making it look like 5 knuckles of bamboo. So really elegant, really refined piece, and really nice work from Tina.
J. Allen Pipes. Jeff Graysick of J. Allen Pipes has contributed something extremely special to the 2024 Global Pipe Making Exposition, a piece that he calls the Whiplash. So the Whiplash, why the Whiplash? Well, I'm going to have to show you a little bit of how dynamic this piece is for you to understand. Basically what we have here is a super, super dynamic and super fluid take on the elephant's foot with a bamboo extension, except this thing is crazy dynamic. I know I've thrown that word out a couple times, but I don't know a better way to describe it. You have a gorgeous piece of bamboo, beautiful in color, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 knuckles, and it has this amazing curve in it. And Jeff and I actually were talking a little bit about this piece when he came up with it. Originally, he was going to orient the bamboo in a different direction and maybe change the size of it a little bit, and sort of like a happy accident, sort of stumbled across this block and the grain pattern and the way that it moved, and all of this stuff sort of came together. These taking these cues from these natural materials is something that these pipe makers excel at. And in this case, we ended up with something that we've basically never seen before, like I said, which is a very, very asymmetric and very, very dynamic take on a traditional elephant's foot. Beautiful grain, beautiful stain. I love the interplay between the colors, and this thing in person is just stunning. So complex, so interesting, so many curves. Beautiful piece.
American artisan David Huber has fashioned this beautiful tomato saucer design for this year's Expo. And what really strikes me about this piece is obviously the bamboo, but in how subtly interesting it is. At first glance, it looks like a pretty standard piece of bamboo, but upon closer examination, it's actually pretty rare in how it sort of twists on itself in the design. Now, it's still straight in terms of the pipe shape, but the knuckles have this twisting motion when you look closely at it, and that's something that you don't see on a lot of bamboo. So David selected a really, really cool piece of bamboo, but in a way that's on the more subtle and refined side. I also love how he treated the stem here with a very slanted stem base that matches the asymmetry of the bamboo knuckles, and it's also an army mount. So very practical, very, very nice piece, and the grain certainly impresses as well.
Adam Davidson, for this year's Global Pipe Making Exposition, our friend Adam has not only one, but two incredibly ambitious and incredibly unique concepts. So the common theme between both of these is that Adam wanted to submit bamboo pipes that did not have any actual bamboo. And he's done so in two different flavors. I'm going to start over here. This is the silver bamboo. So what we have here is kind of like a very traditional Danish, Japanese kind of a form, stuff that Adam has played with throughout his career and made great use of actual bamboo rhizomes. And what he's done here is he's taken that a step further and completely from scratch, I was going to say carved, but that's not exactly accurate, more like hammered, a bamboo shank out of sterling silver. So how to achieve this? Basically, it requires a ton of patience, a ton of custom tooling, and a lot of creativity. So this bamboo silver shank extension, super, super natural looking. I mean, you would almost think that this was just molded and cast from a real piece of bamboo, but what he actually did to achieve this is much more complicated, much more time consuming, and like I said, it was done all with hand tools and a lot of custom tooling to make all of these small, seemingly imperfect, natural-looking bamboo knuckles. A ton of work, a gorgeous execution, and I really love the juxtaposition of the natural briar and the silver bamboo, both emulating or highlighting what nature has to offer. In addition to that, we have something that I can say not only have I never seen this before, I could never even have conceived of this idea. This is the blowfish without bamboo. And essentially what you have here is a sort of, I was going to say a standard, but a gorgeous blowfish form with a shank extension that is the absence of bamboo. Now you can still see the details here and get a feel for what bamboo adds to a pipe aesthetically, but essentially what we're talking about here is the negative space. The negative space around a relatively common pipe accent these days. So effectively what Adam has done here is a great amount of research and effectively has cast a piece of real bamboo and then used that to come up with what is essentially sort of like a skeletized, like it looks like the skeleton of a bamboo shank extension. I love the lines. I love everything about this. It is, I would say, one of the most unique and mind-blowing pipes I've seen in my entire career, truthfully. There's a lot visually to appreciate here. I also really appreciate that what we have here is reverse military mounts on both the junction to the bowl and the stem, so you don't see any kind of like stainless steel tubing or anything like that. That's ambitious in itself, and I think the result is really striking. It also makes this easier to clean, and it's actually a real smoker. It's going to be interesting to see how this looks when the owner chooses to smoke it for several years, because I think it's going to give it a really nice warm glow eventually, and it's going to highlight the details and the nuance of the actual cast bamboo void, as it were. Incredible stuff here, Adam.
Those familiar with Scotty Pearsall's work are no doubt familiar with her pencil shank designs. And if you followed her work for a number of years, you also know that she's made those designs out of morta. For this year's Expo, she has sort of riffed on that theme, but she has crafted a bamboo morta shank for this pipe. What that means is this section is actually of morta that she has then hand carved to resemble 5 knuckles of bamboo. Morta is a very tricky material to work with. It can be brittle when putting it on a lathe and stuff like that, so it really requires a deft hand and very, very close attention. So this is not just visually stunning, but it is super, super impressive from a craftsmanship perspective. Elsewhere, again, we have an acorn bowl, and then this very autumnal sort of brindled vulcanite stem, so much so that Scotty called this an autumn acorn because the color palette is just so reminiscent of the season. One final touch is it's her relief contrast finish, which sort of combines smooth and sandblasted textures. And then this stem base does a really nice job of matching the knuckles, the bamboo knuckles rhythm, as well as their sort of slanted posture. So really, really cool design from Scotty and a very, very impressive feat of craftsmanship.
And now for something completely different. We're going to Greece to hang out with my friend Chris Asterio and his entry into the Expo this year. So Chris has done something really cool here. Of course, the theme this year is bamboo, but there's no bamboo on this piece. Chris has instead intricately carved 3 knuckles of bamboo into the actual shank of this pipe. The care with which he's done so is sort of crazy. There's sort of the bead lines. There's even like the little sort of striations that you sort of see on natural bamboo. He's carved those into this, and so it gives us this really cool dynamism, I think, in profile, especially paired with this really beautiful Dublin bowl. Dublin or acorn. It's got this really nice heel on the front, and then like on the back, it's sort of this little curve that fits really nicely in the hand. And of course, the palette on this is really beautiful. Beautiful contrast stain. Sort of gets darker along the bamboo, or the carved bamboo shank, I should say. And then he's paired that with this really beautiful tan piece of vulcanite here. Just a really exceptional piece from Chris.
American carver Trey Rice has submitted this beautiful cherry wood bent Dublin sitter design. Even despite its fairly long length, he's balanced it perfectly to be able to stand upright, making for a really good desk pipe. But the star of the show is this section of bamboo, as we've been talking about. It's almost got a Buddha belly type of aesthetic to it. It's not as bulbous as your standard Buddha belly, but it has that more rounded essence as opposed to the very defined, more gnarly knuckles and nodes. The nodes that are on the bamboo, though, have been topped with mammoth, so very cool incorporation of 2 distinct accents here on this pipe. And then the bowl is a really beautiful piece of briar with flame grain that matches Trey's shaping. He's done a really nice job of shaping this block to the grain, and the nice mahogany stain does a good job of contrasting against the lighter tones of the bamboo.
And next up, we have a pipe that is right up my alley, a squat tomato with bamboo from Micah Redmond. Micah is obviously well known for his tomato shapes and the many, many variations. I absolutely love this. Rather than some smaller pieces of bamboo, which we've seen on most of the submissions, Micah chose this super chunky piece of bamboo to act as the shank here. And I think it's a beautiful contrast to the Bakelite and the stain that he chose for the bowl. Absolutely gorgeous sandblast on this, ring grain through the sides and the forefront, super tight bird's eye on the bottom, And as mentioned prior, chose a stain that really accents this brownish red hues of the Bakelite. Cannot stress enough how much I love this pipe. Great job, Micah.
Todd Johnson for this year's Global Pipe Making Exposition, sort of pushing the boundaries of a handful of themes that he's played with before. This is a bamboo calabash, and again, we've seen work similar to this from Todd, and I think what he's done here is he's pushed the boundaries a little bit more, even than usual, and kept this like really true to the classic calabash form, and also added these organic elements that make it seem, frankly, like it sort of sprouted from a tree here. And that's one of the things about pipes when I say organic. That's what I mean. Like, it looks like this was not designed by man, it was made by nature. And I think the way that he's been able to accomplish that here is the bamboo itself, a really, really massive, really, really interesting, and really, really gnarly rhizome. And to that, he has sort of continued this beautiful curve into the briar, and kept the sort of traditional calabash form and cap, like I said, on the traditional side. Beautiful wafer of ebonite here and a split stem, which is another sort of American innovation and signature, and to keep the drilling continuous and the engineering perfect, this actually separates right here. There's a fine line that the bamboo separates at with a normal traditional tenon. Again, this is a smoker, designed to be a smoker, and what I really, really like about this is the play on the color. You have the natural boxwood and the bamboo echoing each other, this sort of like really, I was going to say briar-colored ebonite, but really it kind of is, matching the gorgeously grained sort of briar frame here, as it were. And also included is a second calabash bowl, which is actually ceramic, made by Deng Feng, who is a really, really renowned potter from Taiwan that specializes in high-end teaware. And this is a proprietary and custom-made calabash ceramic bowl. And it really does add a whole new element and makes this almost a completely different pipe when you add it. So there's a lot of versatility here in how you smoke it, and aesthetically, gorgeous.
Originally from Italy, but now based in Ireland, Giacomo Penzo has fashioned this really evocative and organic design for this year's Expo. In talking with him about it, he really was going for that organic motif and wanted to shape the bowl in a way that resembled bamboo leaves, as if this were a stalk of bamboo with a leaf growing out of it. And that's resulted in this very unique lens-like rim here. And it's kind of from whatever angle you look at this pipe, it changes its perspective and changes kind of its specifics. It looks like a different design depending on how you look at it. I also love how he's matched the color palette across the whole piece. The bottom of the bowl is this very light tan blasted texture, or this very light tan blasted color, but Giacomo matched the color of the bamboo with the rim. So we have this very dark motif on the rim and the darker section of bamboo that's then contrasted by the tan blast below. He's done a really nice job just with that organic theme again, and also just matching the rhythm of the knuckles with the stem base to really bring the design together.
Next up, we have a killer entry from Peter Heating. So this is a wonderfully gestural, dynamic interpretation of the whale shape. So it sort of has that signature horn-like flow, sort of a paneled, either flank of the pipe that sort of goes into these, whale tail-like fins at the back. And to juxtapose that, Peter's given us a very slender shank of bamboo that sort of rises into the air and really completes that sort of dynamism of the form. Now this is actually a diamond grade from Peter, so it is just an immaculately grained piece. I think Peter's done an excellent job framing every section of this pipe. Either flank just has these sort of walls of cross grain that sort of follow the natural lines of the form, and then the underside, the fore, is just completely covered in bird's eye. And you'll also find that just to really emphasize the dynamism of this piece, Peter's actually given this an ebonite foot that allows it to sit on any surface and really just serve as this functional piece of sculptural art.
Angelo Del Prete fashions artisan pipes in Italy, and he has sent us this beautiful Volcano for this year's Expo. And right off the bat, this section of bamboo immediately just captures the eye. I think there's 6 knuckles. He's put it in this sweeping, full bent posture that really makes for a comfortable jaw hanger pipe. And the briar too is immaculate. We've got beautiful growth rings around the sides of the bowl. He was able to leave the bottom smooth as well for a really nice natural virgin finish of showcasing the bird's eye. And I mean, I love the profile. He's gotten all the curves really nicely balanced. The curve of the rim, the curve of the stem, the curve of the heel all really match with one another. And to top it all off, he's accented the nodes with boxwood. So we've got this really beautiful interplay of bamboo and boxwood, but still keeping the color palette light to match the tan blast.
Abe Herbaugh's submission for the 2024 Global Pipe Making Exposition is this amazing piece. I almost don't know what to say about this. What you are seeing is a pipe with a bamboo shank extension that is made from solid sterling silver. Abe, as a craftsman, is absolutely one of the best in the entire world, and his silver work in particular in the last several years has garnered a lot of attention from collectors and other pipe makers even. And what he's done here to turn something so visually and aesthetically organic from such a precious metal, straight up a precious metal, the amount of work that goes into this, I can't even fathom. And I think the result is stunning. Super, super delicate, beautiful bowl, beautiful piece of briar. It also earned his highest grade, which is the crane, every bit deserving of that. This is an incredible piece.
And next up, we have a ridiculously gorgeous submission from Davide Iafisco of Italy. Davide has chosen to do a smooth cobra with Buddha belly bamboo, and the color palette, although contrasting, it works really, really well. This natural stain on a ridiculously grained pipe is beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful bird's eye on that forefront. These lines are perfect, sweeping with the shape of the pipe. They contrast this pale bamboo really beautifully, and the Cumberland stem just sets it off. I don't think words could really do justice to how cool this pipe is, but great job, Davide.
This is a very special piece from Luis Lavos, an artisan based in Brazil. It's a fully functioning cavalier made mostly up of this 7 knuckle piece of bamboo, and the profile is absolutely incredible. He's matched the curve of the bamboo with the stem, and he shaped the bowl to be evocative of a leaf of bamboos, as if this whole pipe were just growing straight up out of the ground. Like I said, it's fully functioning cavalier, so this cap comes off to drain the moisture, and then we've got the airway and the chamber, the tobacco chamber right here. Also special about this piece is that it is the first pipe to earn Luis's highest grade, which is the smoking snake. And the smoking snake is a specific reference to Brazilian troops in World War II. There was a saying in Brazil at the time that they'd only enter the war when snakes were smoking. So when they did finally enter World War II, they dubbed their forces, their expeditionary forces, the smoking snakes. And his stamp resembles the insignia that the Brazilian troops wore. So it's a really cool homage to his Brazilian heritage and just their efforts in World War II as well. And this is a absolutely fitting pipe for his first high-grade stamp. The natural finish on the briar brings out the cross grain and the bird's eye in stunning display, and it's rare to get a natural finish in any pipe, and let alone a piece as special as this with the bamboo. And he's also topped the bamboo with these little horn beads that do well to match the stem color and kind of bring the whole composition together.
Manduela, for this year's Global Pipe Making Exposition, has submitted something very unique, something I've certainly never seen from her before, although she's no stranger from pushing boundaries and trying new and interesting things and innovative things. What we have here is a bamboo acorn with bamboo. Now this is a piece of rhizome, so the root from underneath the ground, that was big enough and grew big enough that she was able to actually shape it into this acorn shape and preserve, like I said, the rhizomes, I guess it would be, the like actual branches of the bamboo that grows out from the root. To this, she has added a nice contrasting actual bamboo shank extension, this dark bamboo here, and the chamber itself is actually meerschaum. So really, really smokable, a pipe that is going to perform super, super well, even though it is made from very, very alternative materials. Organic, really, really interesting, so much nuance and so much detail in this piece.
And now we have Miss Silver Gray's submission into this year's Expo. This is a sandblasted cauldron with a bamboo shank. What first strikes me about this pipe is there is tons of contrast that somehow goes really well together. The sandblast playing off the smooth bamboo, this smooth rim kind of draws your eye to these two elements. And then the colors, very pale, almost boxwood color bamboo on this one. And it somehow goes very well with this unique vulcanite that Silver chose. It's one of those pipes that you could sit and stare at for quite a bit, and it would take you a while to figure it out. Overall, excellent piece from Silver, a pipe that is uniquely Silver. And we thank you for your submission.
American artisan Jared Coles has sent us a pipe that will be interesting to all of us science fiction aficionados. This is a Dune-inspired pipe, inspired by Frank Herbert's Dune novel series. And Jared has called this pipe the Little Maker in reference to the baby sandworms from the book Dune. I mean, it's an incredibly thematic pipe and incredibly well done within that theme. If you haven't read the book or haven't seen the movie, go look it up because you might not understand anything I'm talking about. But this really does evoke the imagery and the essence of the Shai Hulud sandworms in the Dune series. For specifics, we've obviously got a briar bowl here with a briar chamber, and then this section of bamboo is just fat and gnarly and crazy. I mean, there's sort of nothing consistent about it, which makes it cool and unique. You typically are seeing consistent pieces of bamboo on a pipe, so it's great to see these really, really gnarly, ununiform sections being used in special pieces like this. Speared through with this massive spear of vulcanite that also doubles as the stem, and then the sandworm's tail is also done of vulcanite too. Now, to accent the nodes, Jared used this sparkly blue epoxy that's also a Dune reference to the spice in Dune, made the Fremen's eyes blue from their intake of spice. So these blue nodes honor that sort of theme in the Dune series. And it all comes complete with its own stand made of pine and carved to resemble nothing else but a sand dune. So it's, I mean, display piece, centerpiece of a collection, what have you. It's an incredibly unique, I've never seen anything like this before. I'm a big fan of the Dune series, so I'm a big fan of this pipe. And if you're a fan of the Dune series, this is pretty dang sweet.
And next up, we have a smooth shield with bamboo shank from Max Ramensi of Il Duca. Beautiful, beautiful pipe. These lines are perfectly accented by the grain on this pipe. It is exactly what a shield should be. Beautiful tight bird's eye on the back and forefront. Very crisp lines and straight grain on the sides. But what I find most unique is this use of bamboo almost creates a gradient from the stummel to the stem, a light to dark kind of effect. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful piece from Max.
All right, next up we have what is certainly not a traditional Viking drinking horn, but instead an amazingly impressive signature grade, fully functional calabash from Scott Klein. As you could probably tell, this piece is entirely made from bamboo. The only elements of this pipe that are not made of bamboo is, of course, the stem and the internal tobacco chamber, which is, of course, made of briar. Everything else on this piece is bamboo. The cap is bamboo, so it's a fully functional calabash. You can remove the cap, but the cap itself is sort of this cross-cut section of the bamboo, and he smooth polished that, which gives it this really cool, almost like tentacle sucker pattern. And then, of course, that flows down to this like beautifully tapered piece of bamboo with these almost like waves, going from the cap all the way to this really beautiful, smooth polished accent of bamboo as well. So Scott has sort of taken this bamboo theme and created something that I didn't actually think was possible. And of course, that's the whole point of this, right, is to challenge expectations and do something unique. And I think Scott has definitely done that here with a beautiful, beautiful signature grade piece, fully functional calabash, unlike anything else I've ever seen. Awesome work, man.
And there you have it, the 10th and also first annual Global Pipe Making Exposition. Thank you so much to all the pipe makers who participated this year, and for all of the amazing work that we've been able to see and share with you guys. See y'all next year.